Hi, guys. Hello. Okay. Hello, hello. Hopefully all types. Hopefully I did okay. We are going to be trying to at least glance at all the types of marshes. High asset 87, D-Man 9FP, and carry me through. Welcome. I don't know if I can breathe. I'm not sick or anything, but I am just stressing. Anyway, how is everybody tonight? I have yet to get anything done on here. How is everybody? Good, good. Hi, LaChonda Gibson. I hope I pronounced that right. Awesome. Love when that happens. Today's poll is going to be sort of like the earlier poll. Hello, Baragon Productions. I am here, guys. Thank you, TEH Joker. Guys, I have one more thing to do before we start today's festivities. And then I promise I will be right with you. Okay. My week is interesting. Okay. Both. D-Man, I'm hoping and praying I don't get anything wrong tonight. But if I do, correct me. Okay, so earlier today we So I lied. I got another thing I gotta do. Okay, now we can. Okay. So earlier today we talked about swamps. Today we are going to be talking about marshes. Now, these two ecosystems are both wetlands. Oh, thank you, Joker. Thank you. One is dominated by trees. The other one is dominated by herbaceous plants, meaning that they aren't trees. They're soft. They sway with the wind. Marshes are basically treeless. They're usually filled with grasses, reeds, and sedges, and other plants as well. These plants are adapted to grow These plants are adapted to grow in waterlogged soils. And basically, for the most part, they're covered in water all the time. Maybe not 100% of the time, but most of the time. And just like the marshes, there are different kinds. I'm sorry. Just like swamps, there are different kinds of marshes. But, and not but, and the biodiversity is big. So, there are at least 4 different kinds of marshes. There are saltwater marsh. There is a tidal freshwater marsh, which is kind of bizarre, but we'll talk about it. And then there's inland freshwater marshes, which is probably what, at least in my area, that's what we're used to seeing. Oh man, that stinks. Make me cool. You'll get another one pretty quickly. Just keep putting stuff out. So marshes are really, really common within deltas. And if you don't know what a delta is, when a river empties into a body of water, typically I think of ocean. There are marshes. Hello. Now, tidal marshes occur in both freshwater and saltwater. I typically think of them as being saltwater. But these ecosystems serve to buffer the sea, meaning that there's sea, beach, marsh, land. Something in that order. They also help to reduce shoreline erosion. So when a hurricane, right. So think of it, when a hurricane comes in and it slams the coast, not only do they push sand up further onto land, but when those waves retreat, they take away sand also. Am I correct? I hope I'm correct in saying that. And so the beach erodes. But if there are plants there to help with that buffer, that can be reduced. Another thing that these tidal marshes do is they will absorb the storm surge. And we talked about that earlier with the my brain is gone. I can't think. With the swamps in relation to mangrove swamps and the others. Yeah, I got it eventually. I am just up to here with stuff. They also help to absorb excess nutrients. No, it's not knowledge, it's life. So rivers that run through farmland, they pick up all kinds of stuff. they will pick up fertilizer and all the chemicals that get put into fertilizer. They might pick up bits and pieces of manure. All of this stuff is carried through the rivers and then gets dumped into the ocean. Marshes and swamps help to absorb that excess nutrient, because that is exactly what fertilizer is. That is exactly what the manure is. And as I've already talked about, they do absorb that storm surge when we have storms. They also offer and shelter birds. Yes. So they do a lot of stuff. Guys, as I'm talking, D-Man 9FP, he knows this stuff. He works with this stuff. So he's going to be adding to it. And listen, well, cranes, yes, I don't know how much sandhill cranes and whooping cranes interact with the marshes, but definitely herons are going to be feeding there. They're not going to be nesting there. Herons like to be up. They like to be up in trees. So probably more swamp than marsh, though again, they might very well be feeding in them. Another issue that we see is when you drain a marsh, especially along the ocean, if you drain a freshwater marsh that's close to the ocean, as the tide comes in and out, you can actually have salt water that seeps into these other marshes, and it can actually mess up the ecosystem. What happens is salt water is, of course, has salt in it, which makes it salinity. And it can change the chemistry of that ecosystem. And animals that are not adapted, animals and plants that are not adapted to deal with that changing chemistry, are out of luck. We are talking about marshes. Yes, they are. They are the only shark that can enter into saltwater and freshwater. And some of that fresh water that they enter is actually marsh. Well, maybe not marsh, but rivers. I don't know how much time they actually spend, like, in the Everglades, but yeah. And all of that sea level rise and that seasonal tide can really mess with life. We've talked about runoff from the land, but again, if you drain a marsh, that runoff from land that has manure and sewer and fertilizer and everything else in it, eventually the marsh just will not soak it up and it'll plunge right into the ocean. And if you don't understand why that's a problem, take nutrients like that, put it into a lake or a river. So my understanding is the adult sharks, they can't handle the salt or the, sorry guys, adult bull sharks are not the ones typically that we see in rivers. It's immatures. So parents might come into a estuary type situation. They have their babies. Babies then enter the rivers, and that's what we end up in freshwater. Are these immature subadult sharks? They then will go back out into the ocean and do what sharks do. I just want to stress, though, that bull sharks are one of the most dangerous sharks out there. I'm just saying. So yeah, basically what happens is these nutrients get out into the ocean, and the algae start feeding on it, and before you know it, you have an explosion, and that explosion of algae can do really, really bad things to our oceans and to us as well. If they can get past the locks and they're up this far, yes, you could potentially see bull sharks in our lakes up here. I don't know how common it is. I'm not sure how common it is. I think it would be less common to have them up this far than it would be to say find one at St. Louis. And they have been caught in the Mississippi River as far north as St. Louis. So are they in Lake Michigan? I don't know. So these nutrients dumping into the ocean, they can actually create dead zones in the ocean. So it is a very real issue that we have but I think the bottom line is this. Bull sharks do come into rivers. What rivers? I don't know. It's a chance. Now, tidal salt marshes. These are often found near river mouths, so estuaries, as well as in bays. So when I was in San Francisco, I got to visit a salt marsh. Very interesting places. Now they are called tidal salt marshes because the tides come in and out of these places. So twice a day, they go in, they go out, and you get the idea. Now, sorry, there are also freshwater inland marshes. And oh, wait, I'm going too far ahead of myself. There are tidal freshwater marshes. And these are a bit further inland. No, never. Thank you. Um, I did not know that. I don't remember the mosquitoes. But that's good to know, guys. If you ever venture into a salt marsh, wear bug spray. So these tidal freshwater marshes, they are exactly like the saltwater marshes. The tide affects the water and it'll go in and out. Um, a lot of the fish that live in these marshes, oh, well, but do humans don't pick up dog heartworm, I don't think. But your dogs can, so that's an issue. Here's the thing. Um we as I'm not calling myself a scientist, but I'm definitely a naturalist. And I can tell you that for as much as we know, there's always going to be something we don't know. And so the fact that there's something we don't know should not surprise us at all. So typically, these tidal freshwater marshes are fed by fresh water, but they must have access to salt water because there are fish that live in these freshwater marshes, these inland tidal marshes, freshwater marshes, because there are fish in these marshes that, excuse me, start their life out in the ocean. The adults are out in the ocean. They come into these marshes, and then they lay their eggs. Those eggs hatch. They start growing in these marshes, and then eventually they head back out to sea. Think of salmon. They do this. Yeah. To an extent, I think. So if you were, then there's inland marshes, okay? And in inland marsh, we're going to be talking about a big one. Friday, I think it is. We're going to be talking about not only the Everglades, but we're going to be before that at 1 o'clock. We're going to talk about one of the biggest inland marshes in the United States, and that is um the Grand Kankakee Marsh. Now, if you were here for the earlier live, we talked about the Everglades being a swamp. In places, they may be a swamp, but more precisely, more correctly, and D-Man 9FP, you can correct me, but Lake, I'm going to mess this up, Lake Okeechobee, did I pronounce that right? I hope so. Empties into the Everglades. And basically, the Everglades are a river of grass. and the water flows through it at a fairly slow pace, but eventually it ends up in the ocean. Other places where you see these inland marshes are going to be the Okavango Delta. Awesome, make me cool. Guys, I can't even be, I've never been to the Everglades, but I can tell you the Everglades are there and they are a sight to see, but like a lot of other things, the Everglades are not perfect. They have been, I'm going to call it humanized. And what I mean by that is they have been assaulted. The water that flows through there, I don't believe is the same amount that was there 100 years ago. Water gets sidetracked and moved around just like it does in some of our rivers. But the Everglades provides a home for hundreds of, probably thousands of different life forms. And so okay, so okay. So they're probably more marsh-like than swamp-like. Now, the one place that within the park, there are places around the Everglades that are probably more swamp-like. Guys, if you get a chance, visit the Everglades. They are an amazing ecosystem. I do want to talk a little bit about the Grand Kankakee Marsh since we're talking about marshes tonight, just to whet your appetite. Okay, so yeah, that's probably not going to happen. I don't have the money for that. So the Grand Kankakee Marsh was a huge wetland that cut through northern Indiana. I need money. Railroads came through and they brought people into northern Indiana. And that wasn't a good thing. So the marsh covered over 500,000 acres. 500,000 acres. And it encompassed marshes, swamps, lakes, all types of plant life, as well as animals. It was also home to the Miami and the Potawatomi. They lived within these marshes. guys, the reason that I urge you guys to learn about these ecosystems is because they are a huge part of our nation. Not just the I'm Joker, I can't ask you to do that. That's too much. Right now anyway. um but and we'll talk about it more, guys, but these ecosystems provide crucial stopover points for all kinds of wetland birds. They are just incredible places. So if you get a chance, check them out. Watch YouTube videos about them if you can't get out to those places. I probably talk way too much. I feel like we get a lot of bad news. But I do want to give you a little bit of good news. So they do a contest to remove pythons from. That is true. A lot of alligators in the Everglades, but a lot of people may not know this. We have the American crocodile that also lives in the Everglades. Not as many, I'm assuming, crocodiles in the Everglades, but they are there. And certainly the alligators get a lot of press. Crocodiles, and I should probably do this. Hold on, guys. Because I get this question a lot. What's the difference between an alligator and a crocodile? So, guys, we're going to talk about it. So this is an alligator. Okay? You'll see that his snout is round. That is okay. That's fine. You'll see that the snout is round. Crocodiles have a more, I don't know if you can see that, it's more pointed. Another way you can tell alligators and crocodiles apart is if an alligator's mouth is closed, you're not going to see teeth. But as you can tell on this big guy, who's not exactly perfect, but you can see his snout, it comes to sort of a point. You will see teeth. Not this many, but you will see teeth. And alligators are going to get big, but crocodiles are bigger. So alligators smaller, crocodiles bigger. And way more awesome if you ask me. I think the largest python removed this year from the Everglades was 19 feet. That big enough to take a lot of different animals. And for those of you who say, well, why are the pythons such a big deal? They're not natives. They came from Asia. Somehow they got into the Everglades, but because the Everglades are subtropical, they're able to survive. Now there are rumors, and I don't know how true it is. I've heard rumors that there are Nile crocodiles in Florida. I've even heard that there are green anacondas. Again, not confirmed as far as me. I don't know how true that is. Guys, seriously, if you're going to have pets, don't move to Florida. If you're going to have exotics, don't move to Florida. It's not worth it. Florida has way too many fellas that don't need to be there in the first place. Have I forgotten? Oh, guys, I'm sorry. I had chicken and stuffing for dinner tonight, and it is just not wanting to stay down. D-Man, have I forgot anything? Oh, that's kind of scary, guys. The reason I say that's kind of scary is if there is any snake that could potentially take a human, green anacondas are the ones that maybe could do it. I don't believe that the Burmese python, which is the snake that is in the Everglades, gets big enough to actually feed on people. Definitely anacondas, big enough they could probably do it. I even read a story that was in Reptile magazine about a guy who does, I think he was in Florida, who does reptile wrangling, got a phone call about a cobra, and he blew it off. He's like, it's not a cobra, it's probably a misidentified hognose snake. Well, he got there. He got to the call. And guys, according to the guy that wrote the article, he found a neonate cobra. Now, I don't know where it came from, but cobras lay, I believe cobras lay eggs. I don't believe they give live birth. I could be wrong. Pretty scary. And I don't know how we got onto the subject of invasive species, but it's okay. It's perfectly okay. You guys need to know this stuff. But yeah, the Everglades are way more than the invasives. There are so many cool animals like the wood stork that we're going to talk about on Saturday. I believe it's Saturday. Herons and maybe sandhill cranes, maybe whooping cranes. I don't really know. Black bear, Florida panthers, raccoons, deer, maybe armadillos. I don't know. But manatees, Bayou is um I'm thinking swamp. Am I right, D-Man? Bayou would be swamp because of the trees. If there are trees involved, it is a swamp. Um, so if it's cypress, I'm not the smartest guy out there. There are people way smarter than me. Yeah. And the sad thing is, the swamps again protect the land. I want you to know that I do a lot. Today's live tonight was a half hour of research. I do know bits and pieces. And I probably know more than I'm giving myself credit for. But guys, I don't know what to say other than humanity is its own worst enemy. You've heard me say this before. I will say it probably 1,000 times again. We are not the owners of the earth. We don't own it. We are merely stewards, meaning it is our job to take care of it. And if we don't take care of it, guys, I promise you that the people involved in the destruction of the earth will have to answer for that. That is not just me ranting and raving. That is fact. We don't need to terraform the earth. We need to protect it. Because there are some ecosystems that once they are destroyed, they are never coming back 100%. If you destroy a rainforest, meaning that you take out the trees and then you burn it, that patch of rainforest, even if you replant it, is never going to be the same. He leaves the protection of it up to us. I'm not trying to get religious. That's not my intent. I have a friend who will tell you that in a past life, I was a shaman. My beliefs, it is not from being a shaman. This has just always been up here. I can tell you all about Mother Nature. I can teach you about exotic plants. I can teach you about invasive species. I can tell you about all of these really cool ecosystems. But unless you take it upon yourself to take a stand or to learn about it yourself and to fall in love with it the way I have, probably the way that D-Man 9FP has, it's not going to matter. It's like people that want to say, well, we need to figure out a replacement for plastic. The earth may heal itself, but some of the stuff that we have done, there's no going back. We owe it to ourselves to do as much as we can, even if that is just in your yard. A great example of this, D-Man 9FP mentioned that in Florida, if they haven't already passed it, they're going to be hunting black bears in Florida. Guys, you have a voice within your states. If you hear something, don't just let somebody else speak up. Let you be the voice. I don't hear everything that is happening in every country. I don't hear everything that's happening in every state. What happens in Alaska, I may not have the voice to say, hey, stop it. I'm assuming because people assume that there's too many bears, that they're getting into places where they don't belong. I've heard people say, and I didn't finish it, I've heard people say that we need to find a replacement for plastic. Well, we do. We do need to find a replacement for plastic. But until that replacement comes along, we can't just go out and magically make everything right again. That's not going to happen. What we can do, no, you do matter. Bottom line is this. Guys, I recently talked about this either in a video or in a live, and I've talked about it in other lives. If you, as a pet owner, leave food out for your animals, you are inviting predators into your yard. If you leave your animals outside by themselves, you're inviting predators into your yard. Potentially, if you have fruit trees in your yard and you don't clean up, you're inviting predators into your yard. I promise you, if you have coyotes, if you have bears, you're definitely taking a melatonin pill now. Why is that, D-Man? Are you not going to sleep tonight? Am I getting you riled up? Sorry. Um, you're going to have predators. Plain and simple. They have been here long before you. They have every right to coexist with us. The problem is, um, if you do not properly control your garbage, bears can get into that. Black bears and coyotes will adapt. That's why coyotes now go from the East Coast all the way out to the West Coast. 100 years ago, 200 years ago, that was not the case. We've, through our actions, have allowed these animals to expand. And there is no reason why we can't do that. Um, and I'm not saying that coexisting doesn't mean sometimes there's going to be hiccups. Because people are people, and we think, oh, that's not going to happen to us. It happens in Florida all the time. Maybe not all the time, but it happens in Florida. And I'm not making fun of anybody. But if you're walking along a river or a lake and you have your dog with you, and that dog is too close to the water, it's not a good thing, guys. If I let my cat outside in the wrong areas, I could end up without a cat. And it's not the cat's fault. It's not the coyote's fault. It's your fault. And people don't like to hear that. Uh-oh. What just happened to my light? Did you guys just see that? My light just went out. Hi, Isaac Cortez. We live in a society where predators are looked at as the bad guy. I'm going to say this, and people are going to hate on me. I know it's coming, but the European answer to predators is to wipe them out. And that if you look at Great Britain, you can see it in Great Britain, you can see it in the United States. It is a very real thing. Sorry for standing on my soapbox. It is one thing to appreciate nature. It is one thing to get close to nature. Putting yourself at risk because you think it's not going to happen to you is stupid. Sorry, D-Man. Well, but even alligators though, And correct me if I'm wrong, but if people feed alligators, don't they also become a nuisance? Can't you learn that humans mean food? Isn't that why you are not allowed to feed alligators in Florida? And I agree. I agree with you 100%. Um I'm floored, guys. Absolutely floored. I I have witnessed a coyote walking up to somebody's gate, um and I witnessed somebody's pet dog being grabbed by the muzzle and pulled out of their fence. And if you watched my urban wildlife coyote video, a 6 foot fence is nothing. Uh, if you feed a gator, they will beg, and they're not going to care if it's the guy that's feeding them or your 17-year-old son or your 15-year-old son or a little kid. They're not going to care. And a fed animal, just like D-Man said, is a dead animal. It happens with alligators. It happens with bears. Yeah. If they're yeah. There are animals that you can't relocate. And I don't know that much about relocating gators. But I could spend all day talking about this, guys. All day. And the worst part is I would love for a hater to come in. Yeah, if you have if you're watching this and you are a a person who is not a professional relocator, don't do it. It's bad enough when the pros get hurt. Um, an alligator in a death roll could hurt somebody, and they can be quick. A little one's not a problem. And that goes for snakes too. If you don't know what a snake is, why are you picking it up? Why are you messing with it? I'm sorry, guys. I got on a soapbox. A soapbox I didn't need to be on. We we need to let nature be nature. Yeah, absolutely no reason for anybody to be feeding animals. None. In a suburban landscape, if you want to feed birds, but even feeding birds can cause issues, guys. It's not always unicorns and rainbows when it comes to wildlife. Any other questions, comments? Well, sometimes it's not what's eating out of your bird feeders. Sometimes it's what's eating the bird seed that spills out of your bird feeder. And that then attracts larger animals that are a bigger problem. Sorry, guys, I need to. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to update you guys. I feel like I don't do this enough. This is where we're at right now. We're at 1,716. I am seeing a drop in watch time hours. I think that's because of last week. We have 26.1 thousand views, 262.8 watch time hours. And let's see if I can do this. We are currently at 2,815. That number will probably go up later this week. I don't know by how much, but it should go up. And we're at 22,000 public shorts views. So that's good news. Check out. I know I need to get the shorts up for this week. My phone acted up last night. Otherwise, I would have those up for you. Oh yeah, those were black bears. If I remember the thing right. Anything else, and then I think I haven't yet. I believe it has to do with limestone. Yeah, it's a karst is a type of landscape shaped by the dissolving of bedrock, such as limestone or dolomite, by water, resulting in characteristic features like sinkholes, caves, springs, and losing streams. And it occurs over long periods of time as naturally acidic water slowly dissolves the bedrock, creating intricate underground drainage systems, networks, and yeah. Not something I've talked about much because um I'm sort of trying. What is up with this light? That's the second time it's done that tonight. It's nuts. I don't even think I put my hands back there. Sorry. I haven't. And with the way that I had things planned, is that such that we could do one? I don't think it's the plug. Because I'm nowhere near the plug. I don't know. Can I? Is that something that I could do? There's no bulb. I mean, there's bulbs, but it's all LED. But it also has a very touch sensitive Like, I can touch it just barely and turn it off. Well, it just started. Like, this is the first time it's done it. I will talk to you guys later. I'm going to go. I have got to get this video up and try and get some other stuff up. So I will talk to you guys later. Goodbye, everybody. Be good. I will see you in the next one, which will be Friday. And we are doing the Grand Kankakee Marsh at 1 p.m. and the Everglades at 7 p.m. Or at least that's the idea. Talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.